Welcome to the Catholic Revert podcast with your host, the Catholic Revert, Jonathan Bernos. Welcome to the Catholic Revert. My name's Jonathan Bernos. I'm the Catholic Revert. It is Wednesday night. It's hump day. Yay, yay, yay. Wednesday. It's a big hump day. You know what that means for Catholics? It's Wednesday. Right? Hey, welcome to the Catholic Welcome to the Catholic Revert podcast. I'm so excited to be on tonight. It took a while. I had a lot of technical difficulties. I was really amped up about an hour ago, and then my microphone stopped working, and I couldn't get it to work, and it took me an hour to figure all this out, but it's working now, so I'm just not as chippy as I was. But if you're joining the podcast, the Catholic Revert podcast, the objective of this podcast is to bring some flair back into the Catholic Church, bring some excitement, some passion, all from my own passion, how excited I am because I'm a huge Catholic nerd and I love apologetics and I want to tell my story. I want to talk about my testimony. And hopefully if you're out there and maybe you're a cradle Catholic, maybe you've been a Catholic your whole life and you're just not feeling it anymore, I hope I can insert some excitement back into your Catholic walk. And if I can't, if you're not feeling it, let me know. Reach out to me if you have questions. I'm definitely not a theologian, but I study a lot and I'm working on it. And I'll give you some positive perspective. I'll make you feel good. I can be funny at times. I try to be, and I'll do what I can. That's what I'm doing. You know, and part of this podcast also serves as a bridge between Protestants and Catholics because I was a Protestant for 15 years or so, and I was on an evangelical, kind of charismatic, independent church or Protestant church, and now I've reverted back to Catholicism, and I think it's a really interesting story. And maybe I think from what I've heard out there, from listening to other podcasts and talking to other people and reading different posts, that I'm not the only one that's kind of gone through this reversion. And so I want to share those experiences, and if it resonates with you, then I want to talk more. And if it doesn't, then I want it to resonate. I want somebody inside the Catholic Church who's been there for years to hear this testimony, to hear my stories, and it to freshen things up. I want them to hear my enthusiasm, and I want them to go, what? Why is he so excited about this thing that I've known for years and years? Because I am totally excited. I got Our Blessed Lady here on my desk, so I see her every day. I got, in addition to the statue, I also have my Our Lady of Guadalupe card, my prayer card. I got my rosary, one of them, hanging out here on my desk. And so I'm Catholic out, man. I've got I've got writings of the Apostolic Fathers here. This one's exciting. I haven't got into this one yet. This is Polycarp, Barnabas, and Papias, but I'm excited to read that. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the books. If you're listening to the podcast, then you can't see the books, but I'll describe it for you. And hey, speaking of, if you do listen to the podcast, one of the biggest things you could do to help us out, and I'm gaining subscribers. I've found so far that YouTube seems to be the most engaging platform that I create content and I'm posting it to. But I post content to a bunch of different places. But if you're watching anywhere, you're listening to the podcast, the best thing you can do is like it, or share it, or subscribe. Subscribing, hitting the bell if you're in YouTube. If there's a way to subscribe on some of the podcasts that I'm out there, I'm on Spotify, I'm on Apple Music, I'm on Amazon Music. Those are some of the primary ones. Wherever you can find podcasts, that's where you'll find the Catholic Revert. And I just encourage you to just the bare minimum, even if you don't listen to the whole thing, if you just listen to a portion of it, just to like and share. Help me out just with creating content. If something resonates with you, if you're just a follower of Jesus, if you're a Christian and you want to support Christians, that's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for any money for a ministry. I'm not asking for any specific attention to a parish. I'm not represented by the Catholic Church or any other church. I'm just not affiliated. I'm just a guy who's telling his story, who's talking on into a microphone, who's telling testimony, who happens to be really excited about the Catholic Church. That's it. And if you think that sounds good and good enough for a like, please do. That's all. That's it. And but I do believe, and I'll pray at the end of the podcast here, I do believe that this will help somebody. Somebody's going to hear this, and it's going to speak to them. And wherever you're at in your life, just know that ground floor here for the Catholic Revert podcast, ground floor, main objective is I want you to know that you were created with a purpose. Whether you believe that at this point in your life or not, I believe it. And so I'm going to say it to you. And if you don't agree with me, that's fine. Dislike it, whatever. But I want you to hear it at least one more time before you jump off the podcast. You were absolutely, I believe this, over years and years of discernment, I believe you listening were created with purpose. And that purpose, you get to explore that. There's truth out there, and I want you to find it. My truth is you're created with purpose. You're created with love. Because you exist, you have purpose. And that means there is a creator. And just that thought alone that you were thought of to bring into existence is amazing to me. I mean, that's just mind-blowing to me. And I just hope that some of that, if you hear that in my voice, that gets passed along to you. So that's what the Catholic Revert podcast is all about. Subscribe to the podcast, like and share. I'm also in so many other places. I have a blog post. It's run through the website, The Final Summit /journey, thefinalsummit.com/journey. On the podcast, I feature the audio version of the podcast. I just wrote a couple different posts. I like to write, and I contribute to a couple different Catholic sources now, Catholic publishers online. And I'm continuing to blog. I'm continuing to write. I would love to put together a book. I have a couple different ideas. That's going to continue to grow. It's just the time. It's like sitting down doing a podcast, and then you got to find some time to write. And do you put it into a book? Do you continue to blog? I just wrote a blog post on why there's this big surge in Stoicism. And I think Stoicism is cool. It's philosophy, and I've always been interested in philosophy. But I think that I found it interesting that Stoicism, which has always been around, it's actually older than Christianity. It's older than it even predates. It just predates Christianity, but it's been around forever. If you like Greek philosophy, Stoicism, but it's kind of it's emerging. It's becoming trendy. I've seen it more and more in social trends, and I wrote a post about it. I think it's pretty interesting. Probably do a podcast about it at some point. But that's the latest the latest blog post. I also have my credentials. I wrote about that, did a podcast about that. But anytime I run into liturgical readings that I think are interesting, that I find correlation between the Old Testament and the New, which is being Catholic, that blows my mind still that there's that much correlation. And that's what the church has been teaching for years. But yeah, I'm doing that. I'm probably going to do at some point a podcast about, I'm doing a fast right now. And typically I wouldn't talk about the fast, but I'm on the podcast. I think there's benefit to talking about what it's like. What am I experiencing during this fast? And this is a 40-day fast. This is the first time I've ever done 40 days of fasting. So right now I've spoke it. I spoke it into existence. You guys have heard me. You have to keep me accountable to this. I'll do a podcast episode about it. I'm 10 days in right now, so I'll talk about kind of the effects that I'm feeling physically, mentally. I'll talk about spiritually where I'm at and what I've gone through, and that's been challenging at times too. But it's also been so beneficial, and that's why I do it. This will be the fourth time I've fasted. Typically, or in the past, I've done 21-day fasts, and I've kind of weaned myself off. The weaning that I'm doing on this 40-day fast is I'm actually going into a much quicker than I have in the past. I fasted actually just water and juice today, water and juice only. I'll probably do it again tomorrow. It's kind of on feel right now. And then I've cut out all social media. I've cut out all of these kind of negative influences. I really enjoy it, that part of it. It is difficult though, and I am craving foods, and I know that comes and goes less and less every day. But I'll talk more about that in a future podcast. But that's what I'm going for. Through usually on the podcast, I'm drinking a brew. I'm drinking some kind of a micro brew. I like to do that. I think it's fun. I kind of take that or stole it from Pints from Aquinas. Uh, Chris Stefanik, I started listening to his podcast. Man, if there's anybody that's close to kind of the feel of what I'm looking to do with creating content, it's Chris's podcast. Just his positive mentality, just infectious. It kind of comes through the podcast, and that's what I'm working on myself. If you see me tonight, sometimes I drink coffee. The podcast is done in the morning. This is the evening. It's late, and I'm drinking water. And I'm drinking it out of an orange juice container because I drank all the orange juice, and I thought, well, in order to track the water, I'll just put it into the orange juice container, and there we go. So if you see it, if you hear me drinking, and you can see it on the YouTube podcast, this is why it's in an orange juice container and it's water. So I'm not doing it to show off. I just thought I'd call it out because it will come up before I do the podcast episode. So what else am I reading? What's going on in the news? There's Benedict news. Pope Benedict passed away. So there's definitely some Pope Francis news that I'll probably talk about eventually, but I don't have the strength tonight to do it. I'm reading On the Incarnation. Oh, you know what I'm reading right now? Or I'm listening to audiobook, and I'm really excited about this audiobook. I'm going to pull it up. I am reading C.S. Lewis, The Weight of Glory. The Weight of Glory, which was a sermon that C.S. Lewis wrote, not as widely known to a lot of his other writings, but I saw it referenced in the Word on Fire. I'm doing the liturgical kind of a accompaniment, Word on Fire, which is a Bishop Robert Barron. And within the Word on Fire, or this liturgical reading guide, it was referenced C.S. Lewis. And I'm familiar with C.S. Lewis and a lot of his other works, but I am now reading, and I'll probably do a podcast on this, The Weight of Glory. It's good so far. And it's chapter 1. I just got into it. What else? That's the big stuff. I got Justin Martyr, which I've read before, but I'm going to read them again. Actually, I've only read the first apology. I'm going to read the first and second apologies. So we got that going on. And also, I don't have it down here. Joe Heschmeyer, I'm reading your book, and I'm going to message you at some point, probably before you ever hear my podcast. But I love the book, and I've got all kinds of notes from it, and I'm pulling it out, and it's stuff I want to talk about. But I'm going to try to, this is going to be rough. I'm going to try to cut down a little bit the podcast duration. I've been pulling like 45 minutes to 50 minutes. I noticed that people probably enjoy smaller chunks. I'm going to try to cut back. There's no promises though. I'm not keeping track of the time. I have topics. I have things that I want to talk about, but honestly, I'm not running out of topics. There's so many things I want to talk about. Eventually, I want to bring guests onto the podcast. I want to have debates. I want to either facilitate or moderate a debate between two people, or I also want to participate in dialogue that could be similar to a debate. But I want to have guests on from both sides. I want to have guests from that are active members of the Eastern Orthodox Church. I'd love to have people on that are, of course, active and enthusiastic Protestants. That's my background. That's what I came from. So I'm definitely still active and enthusiastic about. Many people have friends. Hopefully they'll stay friends with me as I continue to divulge that I'm a revert to Roman Catholicism. But I got all kinds of ideas. And so I'm going to do that. That's the direction we're going to go in. So I don't know. I don't know duration yet. I don't know how long this stuff's going to take. Because again, I keep writing down ideas, and it's like I bounce off into tangents. But it's a lot like I thought of this analogy or parable. I love parables, by the way. Thank you, Jesus. Metaphor that it's kind of like there's a clog. There's been a clog in the hose, and once you get the clog out, like all the water comes pouring out quickly. So I'm bursting right now with water, with information, and eventually I'm gonna level off, and I mean it's not going to be a trickle. It's going to be just a steady flow from the hose, right? But right now you're getting that explosion of it's been backed up, and all this water is there's a lot of pressure, and now it just comes out. So the podcast may be longer as I ramble on, and I tend to do that. I'm sorry if I ramble. Hopefully, you're getting some value in it. But I wanted to talk about this today. That's what I call this Genesis, my own Genesis. This is my own beginning. I wanted to start the podcast has two different pathways that I've wanted to go down. One of them is talking about relevant topics and things that I blog about as I learn about things in the Catholic Church, and I'll do cross comparisons to Protestantism. I will do Irenaeus is my confirmation saint as I'm working through RCIA right now. In that process, he will be my confirmation saint, and I've picked him because of his battle against Gnosticism, which I feel is still relevant today. That Gnosticism still lives in the world that we're in. I'll talk more about that. So I got plenty of topics, but so I'm going to bounce around. But what I wanted to do today is I wanted to focus on the other angle, which is really talking more about my testimony. I wanted to tell a couple stories about why I reverted to Catholicism, and I wanted to go back to the very beginning. So I wanted to tell some background in my history. And I want to talk about a kind of an interesting experience that I had just 2 weekends ago. I'm working on a book project. It involves photography. I'm taking pictures of different places, and this is all tied into my Catholic faith. But I had this desire, especially through discernment and praying, that I had this desire to go back to the Catholic Church that I grew up in. And the Catholic Church is in Raytown, Missouri. It's called St. Bernadette's Catholic Church. And for some reason, I haven't been back there, and I did the math, 34 years. It's been 34 years since I went back to this church. I believe I stopped going, my family stopped going, when I was probably about 8 or 9 years old, which is the exact same age that my youngest son is now, which is kind of ironic. But so because of that, I knew his birthday was coming up. He was turning 9. I had this desire to go back and visit St. Bernadette's. And again, I haven't been there in 34 years, and I didn't make a very good plan. I just decided to go one day, and it's about a 30-minute drive back from where I live currently to to the town that I grew up in. And I drove, as I'm driving back, I'm thinking, maybe I should have felt this out a little bit more. I believe it was on a Monday. I believe it was on a Monday. It was during the holiday break. I think I had time off from work, so it wasn't even a weekend like a Saturday or Sunday, which I probably would have had a better chance. And I've been really fortunate. One of the things I love about since I've become Catholic, since I've reverted back and I've been in RCIA, one of the things I love, and I know this isn't a true statement for all parishes or all Catholics everywhere. It depends on where you live, but I've been fortunate to be able to visit my parish and my church whenever I want. There's only been 2 times that when I've dropped by, and I drop by a lot. My parish, my church is not very far away from me. And this is going to be really nerdy, but as I drive past the street where the church is, a lot of times I take the turn and I just go to the church. And a lot of times I just go in, even if it's just for like 5 minutes, I will go into sanctuary or adoration. I actually prefer to go into the sanctuary when it's empty. And it's really peaceful. It's really solemn for me to go into the sanctuary in the evenings when there's no one there and the lights are off. I don't know why. I feel really at peace there. And it's almost like I get some one-on-one time that I also get at home. I mean, I have my prayer closet. I pray at home. I pray daily. But I do this a lot. And I think it's part of my walk. It's part of where I'm at right now as I continue to kind of discern what I'm doing and where I'm going and how this continues to evolve. I go and I like to be in front of the tabernacle. And I can't give you maybe rational reasons why, other than I just feel comfortable being there. When Jesus, when he went to the temple when he was just a child, and Mary and Joseph lost him, and then they find him in the temple, and he says, I was. Why wouldn't you know I would just be in my Father's house? Almost like just nonchalant, like that would be the first place you should have thought of. Sometimes I almost get the vibe or the feeling from that story, a sense of that peace or calm of being in the right place where you're supposed to be, from what Jesus was saying. I feel that sometimes myself. All that to say is, I feel like I've been pretty blessed though in my Catholic reversion walk, that I'm always able to get into my church. Again, there's only been 2 times on holidays that I've gone at an hour and I've gone to the front door and it's been locked. Now I know that's a blessing or a benefit that not everyone gets, because I know that there's some areas, and I've dropped in on churches in different neighborhoods that are busier or more urban, that the churches were locked for good reason. There's not a caretaker there. They're just locked. And it's probably better that way. I would probably feel more secure. But I've also been to parishes, small towns, churches, just in visiting to see some of the architecture, to appreciate the church itself, the building, and I've been able to go right in. And that's so different from my background as a Protestant. There were times as a Protestant that I wish the church was open, that I wish I could go into it. And I believe that we are temples of the Holy Spirit, as Christ says. I do believe that. And I have a prayer closet, and I do feel that peace, and I feel that God is with me when I pray at home. But there's something about going into the church itself, the temple, wherever it is, the tabernacle, because I know now that the Eucharist is in the tabernacle, and there's a different type of presence. So it's still a presence. There's still God's presence is still with me, but it's a different type of presence. And I craved that sometimes as a Protestant, and I didn't even know how to put words to it. I didn't even know what I was craving. But if I was able to access the church, compared to now, there's a different feel. And I will say this, knowing now that I can access my parish in the church, and to be in front of the Eucharist in adoration, or to be in front of the tabernacle, I can tell you that I was missing it, that I needed it. It was something that I was missing, and I didn't know that I was missing it until I had it. And then reflection back to being a Protestant, I realized that I was missing it. And so I don't know how to put that to words. And people that are Protestant, if you're my Protestant friends, you're not going to understand that. But that just is what it is. I'm not making it up. It is what it is. But all this was to go into the story of my Genesis again, the beginning. But so anyways, all this is saying is I think I went to go back to St. Bernadette's with that same expectation that I would be able to get into the church. And I didn't think through it, right? And so I get to Raytown. And of course, St. Bernadette's is closed. And I flip onto the website real quick while I'm in my car, just thinking, well, maybe I've caught it during, maybe there was something going on. Maybe there was a choir practice, something that was going on that I might get lucky to get in, because I drove all this way and I just wanted to see the inside. In my mind, before this has happened, is I'm writing a book and I'm bringing in my history, what I remember about being a Catholic as a child. And in my mind, the St. Bernadette's was immaculate. It was beautiful. It was huge in my mind. I remember the choir. I remember very little at that age. I'm more of a visual learner and I have a visual memory. I like to see things, and it helps bring back those memories. That's what it's tied to. But honestly, I don't have very many visions or memories of St. Bernadette's as a child. There were some things that I remembered, like I remember taking the Eucharist. I remember my first communion. I remember stepping up where the altar was. I remember on the sides of the altar, there was kind of inserts or a way to step behind the altar. Not doors, but curtains. And you could go behind. I don't remember the tabernacle. I don't remember the statues. I don't remember candles. I don't remember a lot, but I remember it feeling really, really big. right? So that was the expectation. And as I got to St. Bernadette's, I pulled into the parking lot and I'm looking at the website and I realized there's nothing going on. There's no confession. There's nothing. The church is closed and it's in Raytown. And Raytown's not, it's an older neighborhood. It can be rough. So the church is going to be locked. But I get out and I walk around the building and I check the doors and sure enough, the doors are locked, right? And I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to try one more door. It's the closest to the sanctuary. Maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe it'll be unlocked. Who knows? So I go to the door and I haven't thought of this. I'm not praying over it. I'm not thinking of it. I'm just thinking, well, it'd be nice to get in. And just as soon as I go to the door, a man walks up to the door and meets me. It was the strangest thing. And he opens the door. And it was locked. He unlocked it, opens the door. And I think I spoke first. I said, hi, I reached out and to shake his hand. He reached out to meet me. I said, hey, my name's Jonathan. And he goes, well, my name's Jerry West. I'm a choir director and, that's what I do here. And it was weird because it's like, that's about as high level as the conversation got, because after that I said, well, my name's Jonathan Burnos. And immediately, right after I said that, he went into this almost like he knew me, or even more than that, like he expected me to be there. It's like that look, like when you have an appointment with somebody and more of a friend level and they're excited to meet you. And when you get there, and they realize it's you, because maybe you've never met in person. They don't know your face, but when you say your name, it's an instant recognition. And there's this excitement. There was an excitement in his expressions. There was an excitement in his voice. And when he was shaking my hand as I said that, he spoke in a way that he knew me and he expected me to be there. Like he'd been waiting on me. Like he hadn't left the church yet. He was on his way out. Like he hadn't left the church yet because he was waiting for me to get there. And I didn't address that. I didn't say, this is weird. Do you know me? Do you know my family? Do you recognize my last name? Because it's, Raytown, maybe they recognize my name. But no, my family's not Catholic. So how would they recognize my family's name? And it happened so quick that it wasn't that. It was something else, and I didn't call it out. And I said, hey, the reason why I'm here is I would love to get into the sanctuary just to see it. I grew up as a Catholic. This was my church as a child, and I haven't seen it since I was a kid. And he was super excited, and he didn't speak anymore. He just went to the door to the sanctuary. He unlocked it. He opened it, and then he got on his phone. His phone must have rang, and he took a phone call right in that moment. And that's all the words I said to him. He got on the phone. He began talking. He motioned to let me in. I went into the sanctuary. I walked around. I looked around. I got to take it all in. And then when I was done, I stepped out. He was still on the phone. I didn't really get to say goodbye to him or thank you or how much this meant to me, because he was on the phone and I didn't want to interrupt him. And it seemed like an important call. And he's there and he's kind of motioning me and he kind of waves and I leave. And that was it. I don't know if he locked the door. I don't even know if he left. There was a car there. So Jerry had to be a real person. It wasn't an angel, or maybe it was. I don't know. There was no bright lights. He was normal, but maybe he wasn't. Maybe it was something super extraordinary that occurred that day. Because the odds of me meeting somebody at that point when there's, it's been locked all day. The offices are closed. It's holiday hours. I'm pretty sure there was a sign that said there were holiday hours. What are the odds that this guy, there was no choir who happened to direct the choir, was there, this old man at the church at the time that I went, and he was able to let me in? That's crazy. When I think about it, that's pretty wild. I mean, I could buy a lottery ticket and have better odds of winning than hitting that church at the exact time of why I went and what I was looking for. But while I'm in the church, let me go to that part of the story. Nothing immaculate happened. In fact, I was underwhelmed, and not in a bad way, but I was taken back where I did remember more as a kid, but there was no area where I thought the massive choir was. And in fact, the sanctuary itself was no bigger than a middle school basketball gymnasium. And I don't give it the full size of a high school gymnasium. I'm saying middle school, maybe even elementary school gymnasium. Let's go elementary school because it wasn't big. It was very, very small, which is fitting for where it was, the town that it was in. And it was not immaculate. I mean, it was not there was no Gothic style. When you see older churches, Catholic churches, the architecture, uh, there was none of that. It looked like a gymnasium had been converted into a church. The statues, some of the statues, like of Our Lady, looked somewhat familiar and peaceful and touching. And I knelt down in a pew for a moment and I prayed. Um, and I didn't light a candle because I didn't have the money to buy the candle, and I didn't want to light a candle and not pay for the candle because of I know the church is small, but it was a little magical for me to be there and to reminisce. But that experience was definitely unique and interesting, and helped me kind of think about a couple of different things. One, I recognize miracles sometimes after they've occurred. In that moment, I recognized not that it was some kind of miracle, but later I do think it was miraculous that I was able to enter this church on the whim in the way that I approached it and how I got there. In the timing of it all. So I don't think it was by accident. I rarely think things are by accident. But that hit me later. Luckily, it didn't hit me too long later in the day that I realized, the odds of that. And I'm not saying it is, Powerball odds. I'm saying that, is it likely that there could have been someone there to receive me? Maybe. But the way that I was received, I absolutely recognized it for something different, and I'll put that in the miraculous category. And this isn't uncommon for me that I see things or I'll feel see things that are signs that I recognize as signs. I see it quite a bit, but I definitely recognize that more in the moment at the time, and I'm very happy. The other things that brought up were, access to a church, being able to go in and see the tabernacle, to see a place of worship where God also dwells, in addition to the Holy Spirit dwelling inside of us. I think that is amazing, and it's one of the things that why I love being a Catholic. And again, I'm not saying that's the main reason. I'm not saying, hey, Protestants, you need to convert because if you do, you'll get more access. It's like a gym, right? It's like I moved, I went my, I, I worked my way up from like the gym, like Planet Fitness I'm at right now, which closes at 10 p.m. to like 24/7. Now I'm at a 24/7 like Club Genesis or Globo Gym, and I can go anytime I want. I like that. It's like it does feel like an upgrade. And I'm not knocking a Protestant church, but depending on the church you go to, maybe that's different. I'm sure it's different for some churches, but the smaller church that I went to, it was locked up because you don't want anybody to get into it or access it. And honestly, the leadership of the church aren't always there, and so less people, less access. Not their fault, but there's just something that I needed that I didn't get, and now I'm receiving that. It's feeding me, and it's necessary for where I'm at in my walk. I've also done this comparison before that a church, and again, this is all these are my opinions. I don't speak for the Catholic Church. I'm not speaking against Protestantism. I'm saying this from my own experience that for me, becoming Roman Catholic has been like going to the emergency room versus I've been going to urgent care or I've been going to just a family practice. If I'm sick, and I believe we all are, and I'm talking about sin, I'm talking about all the things we deal with in life. They at times will overtake us, and we're human, and no one is without sin except for Christ, Mary, and Mary. But we'll get into that later. Protestants don't listen. So we all have a condition, and we're all working through that. And at times, that condition will overtake us. My mother had multiple sclerosis growing up, and there were times where she would go through. It would attack her immune system, would attack her system stronger than other times. And I remember that as a kid. And that's what this is like. Sin is like that. We always carry it. We always carry it. It's like a virus. Or like I have Lyme's disease. I had it since being a kid. I still carry it. It goes into like this recessive state where it doesn't really affect me hardly at all, but there are times where it does, and sin is a lot like that. Well, if I'm in that state and I get attacked, if I have if it creeps up, then I want to go to an emergency room where there's 24/7 care, where there's plenty of staff to receive me. And in my Protestant walk, the churches that I went to were a lot like I had to make an appointment, and I was still getting medical care, and it was good medical care, and it was helping me heal, but it just wasn't the level that I needed at times where I was being attacked. And I have now access to, I go to the emergency room. Um, so I like that comparison with, if the church is a hospital, and I believe that it is, because everyone's with sin and we need a hospital, we need a doctor. Jesus is our doctor, he's our surgeon. He's going to remove that sin. I'm going to go to an emergency room when I'm dealing with that versus if I have access to other places. They're still good. You're still going to get medical care. But again, I enjoy going to the emergency room over going to urgent care or over going to my primary care physician. That's it. Um, so there's lots of Protestants that are going to say, you don't need things like statues or it's idolatry, or you don't need to go to a temple or a church or sanctuary. You don't need to be in front of the tabernacle when you pray. You don't need to have adoration. Um, you can do these things on your own. And that's a very Protestant mentality, to take the Bible alone and to go to your corner, to go to your place, your prayer closet, and to spend time in the Word, and you're going to get everything you need. And I believe that's true. But I also believe that in addition to that, some of these other things, these things that Catholicism provides me, they're also good, and they're so fulfilling for me. And again, wherever your walk is, my walk happens to be in a place that I desire these things outside of my own self. Even reasons of knowing why I desire them, and it's good. So, just food for thought tonight. The podcast is what I wanted to talk about. Was just kind of my genesis. Was, up until 8 years old, I'm Catholic. I'm baptized. My life is in the Catholic Church, and then it stops. And I wanted to know why. I wanted to go back to the root. For me, I wanted to know, for memory wise, I wanted to smell the incense at St. Bernadette's. I wanted to walk through the door again and remember the hallways that I had in my mind. I wanted to see the choir loft, which actually wasn't there. That my mind had created things, or maybe it was different. But I needed to experience that, because I think when you go back and you really reflect and you discover your roots, it really helps you decide where you want to go. And I believe that God called me to do that particular day. And not only did he call me to do it, but he facilitated it. That God was there making sure that I was able to access. And that for me is a miracle. That's just one story of so many different stories and testimony that I have about why I'm where I'm at right now, and why I'm so passionate about the church and apologetics, and why all of my viewpoints and my politics and everything about me and the things I enjoy, everything's changed. I'm no longer the same person that I was even 2 years ago. I'm completely different. And I'm exploring that. And that's what I want to do, is offer that to the podcast. So if you're listening to the podcast, if you enjoy any of this stuff, if any of this is entertaining for you, if you want to just share it, please like and share. Please do that. Please make comments. I'm starting to get some likes. I've got some subscribers. Sometimes nobody's shared yet, but I think it's coming. I'm just going to continue to create content, because that's what I feel like I'm called to do. Because I do believe if there's just one person out there that gets something from this, then it's all worth it. Even then, beyond that, it's worth it for me to reflect and to talk through this, because it's so invigorating. It's so exciting for me, and honestly, I'm nerdy about it. And I'm not afraid or embarrassed by that, to be nerdy about Catholicism, where I'm at, because there's nothing more important now than to have a relationship with my Creator, to have a relationship with Jesus Christ, to have a relationship with my children. And those are the most important things to me right now. Those are the only things to me right now. And everything else will come. Everything else will grow around that. And I don't know where I'm going yet. I don't know the end of the journey, but God's directing my footsteps, and I trust in that. And that's what it's all about: sacrifice, surrender, everything to the Lord. I'm going to pray, and we're going to end a little bit early today. Thank goodness. Praise God. So I just want to. Hopefully, this is a blessing to somebody out there. But if you'll pray with me for just a moment, Heavenly Father, we come to you today in this podcast, in this moment. I'm just praying for those that are listening. If anyone's listening and they've made it this far to the end of the podcast, I pray that they feel your arms and your blessings and the favor that you have for them, what you think about them. I pray that they feel it, even just a little bit, that they know that you are there all the time, and that you're always thinking of them, and your only desire is that they reach out and meet you. They reach out and just touch your hand because you're there and feel you. And in that, there's a surrender to your will, to follow you. And just to feel that love. It's just to feel that security and that peace that you give, to fill the void. And wherever you're at in life, if there's a void, there's an emptiness. And for so many people there is. Father, we just pray that you fill that void. You start gradually, just with a tiptoe, but eventually you just pour out into us, Lord, and we thank you for that. We thank you for this time, and pray for everybody that's listening, and I also want to end with praying to our Blessed Mother by saying and praying, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Well, thank you guys for joining us here on the Catholic Revert podcast. Again, like and share, subscribe. It's late. I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed. Sorry, I don't have the enthusiasm tonight. We'll drink some more water, and hopefully we're going to podcast about that next, about the old the fast, the 40-day fast that we're on, and how much I miss tacos. I thought, oh man, tacos and pizza. Oh, Minsky's Pizza. I'm coming for you, baby. And barbecue. Oh, so many things. And cake and pastries. All right, I'm out. See you guys later. Take care. We'll talk to you next time. God bless.